Figured I'd come talk to the camera while I'm trying to shoot my 300 to beat Tim Connor tonight. By the way, I am in a competition to get to 300 against Tim Connor. The first one who gets there, the other person has to get their name tattooed on their lower back. The kids these days call it a tramp stamp. Tim doesn't know about this, but that's what the punishment is going to be because I'm planning on beating him thoroughly. If you would like to watch that journey, please subscribe to the channel. I don't know what the punishment is going to be for the first one to get to 50,000. Maybe it's a name tattooed like on someone's cheek, like down here. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I wanted to talk about this CJ Alexander thing. He's the guy from Ohio who killed a 635-inch whitetail. Pause. We need to stop. Okay, you would think based on me saying that dude shot a 635-inch whitetail when I meant 235-inch that I was drunk, but that is not the case. We have a 2-month-old newborn, and so I was drunk tired. Tired drunk? So let's try this again, but tonight what we're going to be doing instead of shooting, because literally the rest of the footage that I shot that night is just garbage. Garbage. I'm going to be basically pimping out my Mathews lift the rest of the way. So I'm not shooting, although I think I like the punishments that I came up while I was baby drunk, whatever we're gonna call it, sounds weird. I have 2 things left to make my lift like the perfect, best, most goodest bow that I've had. So that's what we're gonna do tonight. Everybody with a bow press right now is going, wait, McDonald, those aren't the right fingers to clamp that bow. And I will say this, when you max them out and you line them up the right way, 0 problems. I know that I'm probably voiding my warranty because I'm doing this live on air right now, but literally 0 problems. So here's what I'm changing tonight. This is one of the basic donut peeps, like just a simple little hole. And the issue with this is when it's bright out, it seems like really bright. In low light, it's cool because you basically get, it seems like you're allowing more light in, but what I'm gonna put in is one of these Raptor peeps. And what the Raptor peep is basically a more like longer tunnel style peep, which to me just creates more consistent light throughout the day. So if it's, I mean, you understand, I don't need to explain this further. So that's what I'm doing right now. All right, here's what I just did. I weighed this, which is the cutter bracket, versus these 2, which are the Mathews and the Bowfinger. And then I've got one more, but I know that I don't want that one because it comes loose. It's a bee stinger one, like an old bee stinger one. So I'm gonna use this because it was 300 grains lighter. So it was net 3/4 of the weight. And because the lift is so light this year, what I'm trying to do is keep this thing as light as I can. So I actually may do a couple other things with like take the 10-degree down off and just see how it goes. Because I want to see how light I can get this bow to still shoot as well as I feel like I can shoot. The platform is unbelievably stable. Like, I got the RX-8 Ultra out today, which is longer axle to axle, and technically, I feel like it's a more comfortable bow for me to shoot, and it just does not hold as well. So I've still got more work to do with the stabilizers on that. I just started kind of diving in, but so far the lift has just been my preferred bow. It just has. Another thing I'm gonna do, now that I've got everything figured out, is I'm gonna go ahead and Loctite this bolt down right here. So I'm not gonna use the stuff that like is the permanent sticky, but I am going to add Loctite to these threads. Do it. I'm gonna add Loctite to this that goes into the riser of the bow because I know that's what I'm gonna leave on there. I don't need a back bar that has a ton of adjustment for hunting. I don't need micro adjust for my back bar. So the reason that I feel like I need a back bar on this is when I'm shooting a quiver full of arrows, when I draw, I want the weight to just come up. I want my bubble to be centered right away. because it just makes it easier for me when I'm doing everything with the bow to basically be in that type of scenario where I raise up and automatically the bow is basically helping me make it to level. The adjustment that can be made on this cutter is basically up and down and out, like you would normally want, but the gears on the inside will keep this thing locked together so that I'm not going to be running into any issues with losing the stabilizer. So if I'm in the woods and maybe it'll start making some noise, like if something gets loose, it'll start kind of moving around a little bit. I'm not going to lose the position of the back bar, which is the goal. So the other thing that I want to do is I was running this little guy, which I had them make me a 6-inch because I just wanted to try it. Which that looks a lot longer than 6 inches. Come on, that's I'm just kidding. The other thing that's nice about a back bar is when I set my bow down, if I'm not using the engaged limbs, which basically allow the bow to stand completely straight up, I can basically lay the bow down on its left side and this is what ends up laying on the ground. This and then the side of the axle on the top. So I'm not laying any of the cables or anything of that on the ground. Now, this is a Ramrod Wraith, which Ramrod was cool a couple of years ago. They sent me some of these. That's not what I'm gonna run out the back. I don't know where my 10-inch cutter bar is, but that's what I wanna use. I think I might have it on the RX-8, which is at the house. So I know for a fact that switching and changing over to the Peep, the Raptor Peep that I'm using, is a good decision because I know what that's going to do already. And then I also know that going with a longer back bar so that I don't have to carry as much weight out back is also a good idea because basically the longer the bar, the less weight I'm having to use at the end of it. So I think net, this configuration may end up lighter than that 6-inch bar with more weight. Only problem is this is pretty long. This is a 12 back here, and I'd really like it to be a 10. So I'll continue to mess around by just swapping this bar, but that should be a pretty short experiment. Like net, that should not take me very long to mess with. The other thing that I like about this back bar bracket is that I can use this. Now the main bolt going in that I just Loctited, that one you can't, which I get it because there's probably like some sort of torque ratio, but for the rest of this, if something comes loose in the field, I always have this with me and I can adjust it. Where do you go in? I want you in a little bit further. So I don't know if you can hear that, but that clicking. Listen to this. That thing that's sliding on, that grinding, is literally this thing locking into place on those gears that are on the inside of this back bar. It is not a sexy bracket. I've said it a few times because one of the reasons that I think I was hesitant to run it was because it does look like basically just a couple of pieces of bar steel slapped together, or bar aluminum. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, this makes sense because it's not going anywhere. And that is the most important key on a hunting bow to me, is the durability of what we're dealing with here. Making sure that whatever we set in place is not going to move. This will not be the exact final configuration because I want to do a 10-inch bar back here. But this is closer. We're closer. UV grip, the Ultra View grip, which I think is a big upgrade over the Engage grip. This makes it feel like your hand is going to sit in a place that every time I reach for it, my hand just wants to go to that position. Whereas the Engage grip, I feel like I can grab it left to right and induce torque. So I can move it around and manipulate it and create torque. And I've noticed that in hunting scenarios, especially stuff where I feel like there's more pressure. My left to rights are where I'm off. It's not generally my ups and downs. And I think that just has to do with like my high-wristed versus low-wristed position doesn't really change. But what might change is, am I grabbing more of the grip or less of the grip based on how I'm approaching. When I tend to miss here at the house under perfect circumstances, I tend to miss low left. But I've missed in the field to the right a couple of times. And so what that tells me is that is purely grip. Purely grip. Ultra View slider. Really impressed with this so far. I wish that it had a stop at the top, but I think that they're going to make that in some production model. But overall, I think that this is a really great scope. Raptor Peep tied in reasonably well. I am not using my serving to basically create any tension on the string. So I'm not pinching in the actual Raptor Peep by crimping down the string around it. What I'm doing is setting the peep in there and then creating tension by basically tying knots up and down the left and right hand side so it can't slide up and down. What that also tells me is as soon as this string starts going bad and that peep starts rotating, I know it's time to put a new string on here. Cutter stabilizer with the 10-degree down in the front. The reason I'm putting that on is twofold. I can take this 15-inch front bar and load this thing in like this with that quick release. And carry it this way, which is super handy. So it's a really quick, easy way if I'm throwing something on a backpack that I can take a 15-inch bar. Because I did an experiment a couple of years ago where I shot an 8, a 10, a 12, and a 15 out front, and I was more accurate with a 15. So the biggest jump I noticed was from 10 to 12, but there was still a change for me when I went to the 15. I put the harmonic dampener from Mathews out front here, and what I did was tie it on with a little bit of serving. So these tend to pop out. So I did the same thing down here, which I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not, but these dampeners tend to pop out, and they're pretty substantial. Like there's a weight to them. And then, so I've tied those both in with serving so that they won't come out. The reason I'm using it on the front of the stabilizer is its weight. It allows me to basically, I've got one more 1 ounce weight on here, and then this thing should feel good. I could do another one on the back over here, and that's just because I had Mathews bars already, and it just makes it that much more quiet with those harmonic dampeners at the end and just steals a little bit more vibration. I'm using the Ultra Rest Integrate, the MX2 this year. So I had been doing limb-driven rests, which was great, but I'm so impressed with how compact and small this thing is, and the fact that I can get to every part of it with this while it is mounted to my bow. So I had trouble with the Hamskea on this or on the VXR and the Hoyt RX7 last year, where I had issues with like a part of it coming loose, and I had to take the whole damn thing off of both of those bows to get it fixed. And I think that MFJJ actually ended up making a replacement part, the bracket that holds on to the actual bow. He ended up making a part of it because I wasn't the only one who had that issue. Mathews Quiver. Some of the Mathews accessories are just stupid expensive, but this is one of the ones that I do think is worth it. It's the 2-piece quiver, so it doesn't come off. It just stays mounted really, really tight on the bow. And this is another reason that I went with this, the Ultra Rest, is it just allows the arrows to stay right on the bow, which allows me to use less weight on this back bar. I can already tell this back bar is obnoxious. Let's weigh this bow. I'm just curious, with this configuration, what do we end up with? 6.84 pounds. 6.84 pounds. My VXR stripped down to this point with everything that I had on it was almost 8 pounds. So I've shed just more than a pound off of this bow. So the basic bow riser by itself is a quarter of a pound lighter, and then basically all the other accessories and things that I've been able to take off from what I was using before. That's crazy. Like, that's a huge weight savings. This feels lighter, and I think I'm gonna go with a 10-inch bar back here, so that should shed just a little bit more weight as well. We shall see. The other thing that's interesting is these Engage EXO limbs. This is a different Engage limb than what was on than what's on the VXR. The ones on the VXR are heavier. So even if you want to cruise around and you want to just keep your configuration exactly like this is still going to end up net lighter. Really curious. That actually worked pretty well. The bubble fell right in with that weight in the bat. It's ridiculous. I'm in a race to 50,000 subs with Tim Connor. If I have helped you in any way in the past, I would very much appreciate a sub. I don't know what the punishment's going to be when we're on our way to getting there. I think we've been talking about face tattoos. So if I'd have to get Tim Connor tattooed on my chin if I lose to 50,000, but I really like the idea of Brandon McDonald being tattooed from ear to chin on Tim Connor. So do me a favor and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.